Rebekah.
Cool. Someday I'm going to have a book. So that will sell someday. But in fact, that's where I have, this is the cover of the book. My book is going to be called Fire, Water, Shelter, Love. An off-grid story and handbook for those facing frontier life in the 21st century. Someday. I wanted to read you the quote on the back of my book. It's going to be a story about one family struggled to live off-grid in the 21st century, but my quote is, "This is the hardest thing I've ever done, and I've done hard. The realities of living off-grid are nothing like the magazine's propaganda. The reality is that if you don't know from where your provision comes, you don't have a chance to make it." That's my quote. So in a nutshell, we live downtown Coeur d'Alene. Used to live in downtown Coeur d'Alene, had a little house downtown. We were wedding photographers. I had had a graphic design firm prior to that for about 10 years. And so very well known in the Christian camping industry. Used to travel around and do conventions and whatnot, and used to teach how to do advertising and all that. So was very connected in with the church where we were, with the the career that I had. And then it kind of changed into, I almost miscarried my second. So closed my business, I had a photography department with a traveling photographer, and so we took that part, and then over the course of time, I made that into a profession, into another career. I had a 10-year career in graphic design, and then I had about a 7-year career as a photographer. And Isaac joined me towards the end of that, and teamed up together. He was the lighting guy, and so he would go. I loved weddings, and so he would basically go set up a wedding, everything, and then I would show up because I would be shooting for about 10 hours or so, and I'd show up and he'd hand me a camera, and then I'd take it away and go, and then he would tear down and stuff. So we worked together wonderfully well. In 2010, I believe it was 2009, into 2009, we took out a loan on the house. So we'd been downtown for about 13 years, and we remodeled it. It was down Sanders Beach area, so really nice little cute little house. Remodeled it from top to bottom, and had the 2 kids, and I was well connected in town. Had office space down Sherman Avenue, actually 2 different office spaces. And we used to rent out our house during Ironman for a stupid amount of money. It was really cool. I used to be able to walk downtown and know almost every shop owner down there. So I've been here in Coeur d'Alene for, 30 years, something like that, 25, 30 years. I used to work at Camp Miveden as well on Hayden Lake. That was another career. But anyway, we took a loan out on the house because I was having brides and high school seniors and everything. They'd come into my home and they'd trip over dogs and toys and kids and everything. It was just like it was time. I had a pretty decent clientele list, and I was right up there with, the good Quicksilver. My images were right in line with some of the best photography studios in Coeur d'Alene. So I thought it was time. So we took a loan out of the house and got that completed in January. So we got the loan, got the cash in January, got a little office space in Charlotte's Web building there in Coeur d'Alene. Opened that up, started developing that, and got that all, spent 4 months getting everything we needed for that to just rock and roll. Opened in April, and that was 2008. Anyway, whenever the fall was.
Yeah.
Whenever the fall.
I think it was towards the end of 2008.
Now I'm confused on dates, but anyway, it was somewhere in there. And we were tanked by October. Literally, it was the craziest thing in the world. I had a wonderful clientele list, but when everything was falling, people would come up and brides, they would come in. I interviewed more brides that year than I ever had before, but I had more brides say, I think I'm going to have my uncle do it or my best friend do it. And so photography became one of the first things to go because it's not a necessity. So I found out very quickly I was in the wrong business for a recession or a depression, actually is what it was. we were tanked by October. Now, what I mean by tanked is we came to a decision. We made, and can I ask real quickly? Okay, so I can't tell my story, our story, without the faith part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah, we're Mr. Atheist. This is totally the foundation is that. Yeah.
Very good, because I
Nowhere.
can't tell our story without that. Okay, so I'll just back up just for a second, if you're good with that. I don't know
Sure.
what faith or denomination you are or anything, but the creator of the universe has other things in mind sometimes. So I call him Yahweh, Yahshua Elohim, so we opened in April. We came into, what I mean by came into covenant is we made some promises to him that we would obey. And officially, we had been obeying for a long time, but we hadn't officially said we're going to obey. So we get to this point of Shavuot, and we sign our names on the dotted line, and we were so excited, because we're very excited to do this repentance thing. We sign on the dotted line. 2 weeks later, an electrical storm hits the new office, fries the computers that we just got. And we went, oh my goodness. And I ended up working, this is a newer one, but I had one just like it before. I ended up doing all my photography that summer, the jobs that I did have, on this instead of on my nice, beautiful computers. Anyway, so as things were getting harder and harder, it felt like there were cogs in the wheel, that he was shoving cogs in the wheel to say, you know, I'm going to force this. I'm going to force something to happen here. And so we decided to allow the free fall. This is an important point that I always make when I talk to people, because a lot of times, like, I'm a troubleshooter, and I'm sure a lot of you are. You probably wouldn't be here if you weren't. But troubleshooters can make things happen. Even if Papa doesn't want it to happen, you can work your way around him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he will let you until you stop and you say, okay, I'm sorry, what was it again you wanted? And it may be what he wants is not anything near what you were wanting, right? And so there was a time throughout the course of those months right there where there was options for us. Absolutely. We could have, you know, done this, that, and the other thing. But he was making it really clear that he wanted us to do a free fall. We did try. We actually tried to because what happened was the business was tied to the loan on the house. So as soon as we couldn't start paying this very high payment anymore, we went and we tried to remodify the loan.
Yeah, to modify the loan. This was, you know, Citibank, 2009-ish.
Yep. When we were, and they said, you know, that was like October, November, we tried to remodify, and then, of course, Citibank said, okay, well, you may half your payment, and we'll put you in the repayment or the modified process, right? Well, come March, we hadn't heard back from them. We were constantly trying to get hold of them. And come to find out, they said, oh, you make too much money to modify your loan, and by the way, you owe us for all the stuff you didn't pay, and we're foreclosing in 6 months.
Right.
This was in March, and so while we didn't have a job, because what we were doing, we had invested all this money in all the equipment, and so as soon as we realized what was happening in October, we made the decision in October to be done. It was October 30th that we made the final decision, okay, we're done. We literally started liquidating everything as fast as we could. So, like, as a pro photographer, I don't know if anybody is, but that's my baby. Those cameras were my babies. And I literally, I used them we have our Down syndrome daughter. I used the camera to find my daughter. Like, literally, this is healing for me. I'm looking at her going, there it is. You know, there was a lot. I remember walking into the UPS store, and I held up, and I know all the ladies in there. I've had a mailbox in there forever, and I went like this, and Terry's like, that doesn't look very good. And I said, just take them and mail them to this address because I'd sold them on eBay. But that's how the process went. We started selling everything of value that we had. So I don't know at Citibank what they had their head in the sand because we didn't actually have a job. We were on food stamps by that time. We were on welfare, on Social Security with our daughters, needed Social Security or had Social Security. So we were like, we went into this on a side note, they remember how we were part of the very first ones that they were started foreclosing on, and they ended up doing it wrong, and so they said, what was it? They have the
there's a class action later
yes.
in the city and a couple other big banks about how they handled those initial those modifications early on and stuff, and there was
So they were gonna, they said at some point they were gonna give every family, every homeowner that they had foreclosed improperly on at the beginning about $2,000, $2,500, something like that. Well, of course, they string it along, so they end up paying all the lawyers, and by the time you're done, you get like $500 2 or 3 years later. So that's what happened. Anyway, so the whole idea of it going into foreclosure the following year, or 6 months later, was like, oh boy. Okay, so and what we really focused on the whole time was this walk with Papa. So he asked us to obey. He asked us into this rhythm of these festivals and feasts. And I'm a feast diva. I love all it, from Passover all the way to Hanukkah and Purim. I'm loving them all. I live this rhythm, and we live it no matter where we are. And we have been lived in a lot of different kinds of situations. So while everything's falling, while we made that decision to allow the consequences to hit us and to let Papa move us where he wanted us, we're still obeying and we're still throwing feasts. So we were at the library, Coeur d'Alene Library for Purim that year, and that was probably about February. And this was March would have been when we heard from Citibank, so it was like a month before. And we're hosting this big Purim party, and down the stairs walks my old roommate from college. I hadn't seen her in 20 years. Come to find out, she's celebrating the feast as well. And over the course of time, about a month, we start becoming friends again. And they had been sitting in, the year before, they had been sitting in a bankruptcy court, and Dan had 2 pieces of property. And as he's sitting in the bankruptcy thing, you know how it is when you're in bankruptcy, they'll let you take 1 piece of property. You can have 1 thing, you can't have 2, you can only have 1, or something like that. 1 car, 1 this, 1 that, whatever. And so as they were in this, there was 2 pieces, this little tiny piece up here and then their big piece down here. And somehow he got both. He went under the, he's a smart dude, and under the radar he got both. And they both have separate tax ID numbers. And so anyway, over the course of time, over that next month, and we were free falling. We were like, Papa, what do you want us to do? So we're packing. We don't know where we're going. We have no idea. And all of a sudden they give us this little piece of land with the deed. Prior to that, since we celebrate the feast and we make our own juice, you saw me bottling juice right there. So we had about 144 bottles. We have our own label called Kingdom Sellers. And so we were bottling, it's not wine, it's actually juice. And so we had 12 boxes that were in our basement we were trying to get rid of. Because, anyway, I couldn't move with the 12 boxes of bottles. So we gave it to them and for their Passover up in Bonners Ferry. It was 144 bottles. Well, we got the deed to the property. And it said, sold to Chris and Rebekah Garber for 144 bottles of Kingdom Sellers juice. Got a little piece of land. And the piece of land was really wild because when we got the deed, it had a little drawing on it, a map of the land itself, and it looked like, in the morning, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, I'm like, that's a Hebrew letter. There's gotta be a message in the land, right? I pull out my Hebrew books, and boom, it's a samak, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I say mak, or samak, however you say it, and it in the paleo, it's a tree with a prop, and in context, it means you lean fully on Yahweh, and He will support you. And so there was this message in the land, and I didn't even need to go up there. I remember the moment Isaac came down, and I was in the kitchen in our little house, and I'll show you a little picture of that. But we were in the house, and he's like, comes up to me and goes, it's a cool little piece of land. And I went, great, I'm packing. He said, you don't even want to see it? I said, no, Papa, it has Papa's fingerprints all over it. I just want what Papa wants. So then that was the start. That was the start. So we began this process of packing and everything and moving it. So when we were, and I know a lot of you, let me see if I just wanted to show you real quickly.
Projector turned itself off.
Oh, how do you turn it back on? Understand this, we're coming from the back end perspective, but 2020 is 20, whatever. You're
Hindsight.
Thank you, hindsight. Now, so we've lived through this. We were 4 years at the tipi, in canvas, with kids, North Idaho, through the winters, 4 years, okay? So we're looking at it from hindsight, but we have watched friends come to the moment of the free fall, and they don't take it. They come to the moment of free fall, and they say, I can troubleshoot that. We are capable of troubleshooting around Papa. We are totally capable of that. He will let us, because there's such a thing as free will. Okay, so for us, it was the moment of, okay, I'm not going to troubleshoot Papa. I'm going to go ahead and do this free fall. I'm going to pay the consequences of my own sin, my husband's sin. I'm going to pay the consequence of everything around me. I'm going to let Papa take us into the time of trouble. And this is what people say to us all the time, oh, you've been there, you've done that, you're ahead of us, and you're paving the way for us, and you've been there. And when the time of trouble comes, when I'm going to run to the woods, then I'm going to come to you guys. What? And I don't know what's going through their head, because they're probably missing their time of trouble, honestly. And if you look the scripture, if you search the scriptures for what time of trouble is, there's only two, and there ain't future. So you actually have opportunities, I think, and when Papa's ready for you to be entering the wilderness, there's going to be an opportunity coming for you to free fall. And what you choose at that moment is whether you're going to enter that time of trouble or not. And so when we talk to people, we've been in the time of trouble. This was our time of trouble. So we went and we sat the Ruach HaKodesh. We were like, what does the Ruach want? So we journaled for 14 days, did a nice time, and we knew when we came back what we were supposed to do. It was like, we didn't know the steps, we didn't know from here to there, but we knew we were gonna listen to the wild goose, the Ruach HaKodesh, and we were gonna follow one step at a time, and that Papa was gonna be our provision, because that's something else that is extremely important when you're going into your time of trouble, into your wilderness time, if not all the time, is who is your provision? Is it yourself? This is something that I say all the time. Oh my gosh, people would say, I have this backpack at the door, it's full of this, that, and the other thing. I've got the storage unit full of this, I've got a fruit cellar full of this, that, and the other. I got these guns over here, I've got this, that, and you prep till you're blue in the face, spend all your money on that, and the earth can open up and swallow it all, and then what are you going to do? No, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious, because we didn't have, like I said in the video, we didn't have thousands of dollars to pour into anything. I mean, I ended up selling, this is not what it looks like, okay? This is just a cheap thing to make the boys not hit me, on me. But I sold, and that was the last thing I sold, was my engagement ring. It's just, you can't prepare for it. Okay, this was the land when, like you saw in there, we started putting our stuff in storage. One of the things we did start to do was we started looking, okay, we're going to be off-grid, so what are we going to need? Well, I was thinking flour mill. Anybody want to buy that? Because it's stupid. Yeah, I got it still. You can totally buy. I got a couple things. What do we got? We got an off-grid water distiller to try to make distilled water. I got this. I got several items that are stupid. They're a lot of work for a lot of money, and they're useless. Butter churn, I got a 100-year-old Daisy butter churn. Ugh, you need a cow. If you had a cow and you had money, or you had money to buy the milk, then that's great, but I didn't have that, so we went without butter. That was really cool to think about, but it literally took 15 minutes to get a quarter cup of flour. Okay, I'm tired enough. I don't need that. And then, you hook it up to a bike. Everybody has a great idea. Hook it up to a bike and do that. I don't need extra exercise. I'm beat as it is up there, just hauling wood up and down the mountain and water. I mean, it's like a reality check. And a lot of people would say to us, oh, you know, oh gosh, yeah, I don't know where you guys are with this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Oh, I know how to live off grid. I've read all the books. I'm sorry.
That's not reality.
I'm sorry, but unless you've actually lived it, you know nothing. Books, throw them out. They don't mean a hill of bean until you've been there and done it yourself. You have to find a sustainable way that's going to work for you. The books, it's somebody else's experience and wants to share it. That's great, but it doesn't, and plus there's so many. I mean, Isaac and I were talking on the way over here. We are no experts in any of this. The only thing that we have is a story and how we slogged. We called ourselves the children of misery because and you know how it is. Winter's 9 months up here. I mean, it's awful. Try living outside. I used to go downtown to my friend's house or just down, whatever, and I hated town day. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But I'd go down and people would say, oh, it was such a mild winter. And I'd say, you didn't live outside. Don't talk to me about mild winter. You know, it's like right now. I mean, we have things pop up over and over this year that we were not in the tipi this year. This was a nasty winter. This was the same kind of winter we had the very first winter we were up there. It was bad, and it nearly took us out.
So just to jump in
Yeah.
and maybe qualify on some of these items, you know, you're going into it, you make your best guess at what you're going to need, obviously, and we had the little money we had, you know, we had made choices, and we ended up with a couple of what we would call expensive items, you know.
But we got a lot of
This
good
one for $300, $400, or that one, that never came out of the box, you know, to this day. I mean, we know how to use it. I know how to set up the distiller that, you know, that goes on top of a fire or a wood stove. I got it set up, but we never got into that place where we needed it. You know, that just didn't come because, you know, like probably every situation is you're gonna have those those assets that you couldn't foresee. So we ended up with some things we didn't need, and we ended up wishing that we still had our Kirby vacuum cleaner because it wasn't very long in the